just sold these 2 slabs. What I do before I put them in my kiln, this is my no process. So I'm going to start a project on my app. I'm going to tell it the client's name, the type of wood, the resin, all the information. And then what I usually do is I do 4 readings. It's 2 meters roughly. So I do 4 readings across, and then I'll come back in a couple of days and do another 4. And then the app is going to build up a record of all of those scans. And when I get it down to about 10 roughly, 10% moisture, then we're going to be ready for the resin pour. So when the slabs come out the kiln, I just do a kind of pre-flattening just to get them nice and flat so they can sit in the mould. The final dimensions and depth will be done after the resin's poured. So I usually clean up the edges. I've got a plastic wheel for my angle grinder, also a wire wheel. I've got a video on this, I'll put a link in the description. Get rid of all the bark, but I never seal the edges before pouring the resin ever. It's much better bond if you don't seal it, and I have 0 problems with any kind of bubbles and gassing problems because I use glass cast and it works perfectly. So, because I've got quite an awkward shaped mould, it's only been sealed on the outside. It is just hot glue. I don't know why people keep saying it doesn't work, but it is. What I'd usually do in this case is I'll pour a very, very thin layer, very thin, may just be a millimetre, and that'll probably get sanded off anyway, which will just seal the inside. I can just check if there's any minute leaks. I can use some acrylic, decorator's chalk or whatever. So just a very, very thin layer just to seal it, but this will be done in one pour tomorrow. So if you're used to watching my channel, you know I only use glass cast. In this case it's glass cast 50 because it's a deep pour. I do use a liquid called table. I think it's recommended for like 2 pours of 25 ml depending on the conditions, but I use a liquid called table. I use air conditioning, sometimes fans, and I'm pretty happy up to a 60 ml pour. I'm still getting a day to a day and a half, and the resin's still liquid, still nice and slow cure. The longer the cure, the longer it has for the gases and the bubbles to escape. No need to seal the edges, as I say. You just need to experiment and work around you know, your actual environment, because it's very, very important, the environment you're pouring the resin in. So this table is not actually going to have any straight cut edges. The client likes the natural kind of look of the tree, but just to compensate for where the bark cuts back a bit sharp, I've let the mould run under. I then shape it with a cut saw disc, and then I'll polish this just the same as I do to about 320 on the sides, and you'll have some wood, some natural wood, and some resin on the edges. It looks really, really good. It's actually quite a lot of work, but it looks great. So when it comes to the polishing and the sanding at the end, I just spend a lot of time on this. It's the 80s and below 60 grit. They're the ones that really mark the resin and put those kind of circle pigtails in it. So I spend a long time on 120. Don't be scared to throw away the pad and just keep using new bits of paper. A lot of time on 180. Forever on 240, and then maybe 320. Depending on your finish, you're going to want to finish it up to about 240, 220. Sometimes I go to 320. Just spend a lot of time on it. You might spend a day on each side and then come back to it and double check. So you can spray it with some water or some wax cleaner, or even acetone's really good. If you put acetone on, it evaporates almost instantly. So you just get a few seconds to look at how you're doing with your finishing, and then you carry on with it. So this is hard wax oil with a stain in it. It's made by Heidelberg, and you pick the colour of the stain. This is called Havana. Well, it might be a variant I had mixed for myself. It's almost like getting paints mixed. You put it on as the first coat, and then once that's fully cured, you can then build up your normal hard wax oil to protect it. So it's a hard wax oil and stain in one. So we always do the underside first, and then as quick as possible, as soon as it's dried enough to polish up, buff, flip it over so that you're coating both sides as fast as you can, usually within an hour or so, just not leaving it for too long so that it might cup or anything like this. So the key here with the buffing, or any other buffing, whether you're doing it by hand or power buffer or put something on your random orbit, you're just trying to spread it really evenly, and the most difficult part is making sure you don't leave a big sticky mess on the resin, because it is eventually going to soak in or be absorbed by the wood. The resin doesn't really absorb it, it kind of uses it as a polish. So there's no real set time. I guess it takes around about half an hour to 45 minutes, depending on the size of the table, to apply the oil. And when it comes to how long do you buff it for, it kind of depends on the wood. Some wood really soaks it in and you need to keep going over it. Some wood, it just seems to sit on the surface because it's so tight grained. So you just kind of judge it really. You don't want anything to be left a sticky mess, especially the resin. I just go around the edges, as you can see. I'm just wiping the excess off as it runs around. I don't really apply any to the edge. It seems to find its way there from buffing. So as you know, we do all the design and the fabrication in-house. This is my son Will, if you've been watching it. These are tricky legs. A lot of it needs to be cut by hand. Compound miters, they're great big 80 by 80 profiles. We have got some templates for chop saw for doing the main one, but he's pretty good at doing these compound miters by eye. There is use of spirit levels, complicated clamping. Just takes quite a while, quite complex, but really nice looking leg. Okay, this is just a test fit, still not at its final buff. We're still not put the brackets to hold it on, the plates to screw it onto the table, just seeing how it looks, making sure it's all sitting right, and then we'll carry on. handy to make some extension, wouldn't it? Maybe metal.
I think whatever size you've done is pretty good. 9 was it?
Yeah, 9.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect then. Proper good tight thread.
Okay, so next is going to be rebating in for the legs. I'll do this often, a lot of C-channel as well. Okay, so this is the wood threaded inserts. These ones are ramper. You can find them online, or depending on what you're doing, you can buy stuff like called D-nuts. You can even get them from places like Screwfix and eBay, etc. I use the ramper ones a lot when the wood's really, really hard. You can then use an impact driver to drive them in, and you don't have them shearing off. Some of the softer, cheaper threaded inserts for wood, they work fine if you can get them in, but sometimes it doesn't go so well. So the more expensive ramper ones are really good. I don't use anything flashy, it's just a drill bit with some tape on it, stop me going straight through the table, and I'll just fire it in with the impact driver. Okay, so this is the first coat, the Havana oil. I've let this dry over the weekend. I'm just going to buff in a couple of times today some of the regular hard wax oil that I use. I think it's 0001. I'm just going to buff it right across the top, and that seals in the colour, because obviously we don't want to wear into hard wax oil. Stain is similar to wood stain. We need to protect it to look after the colour. So just going to buff in a small amount a couple of times today of the regular hard wax oil. I'll be buffing this on and off all week for about 3 or 4 days. I'll just keep coming back to it and adding small layers to really build it up for protection. The client wants this to be super protected, but as with many things, if you were to use like a 2-pack, then you basically can't repair it at home. So it would need to be brought back to a shop or something if we used some kind of lacquer. So we've gone with oil again, just trying to build it up to give it the absolute maximum protection. I will buff it at the end as well. This hot oil is so hard, you can actually power buff it with a water-based polish, like 5000 grit. Give it a real power buff. Okay, so unfortunately I'm not giving out the recipe here. This is an aging process where I age the steel. And you will see me first age it. It does take a couple of days to get the finish how I want it, so you'll just see a bit of the application when you get the first kind of aging, and then I'll work on this on and off. It's a bit of an art, I'm still learning myself. And then the second stage you'll see is, again, it's something I'm doing, I haven't seen anyone else do, but I'm happy to tell you about it. The Heidelberg oil, after this stage, you can spray steel. So it's not intended for it, but I've seen it works, and what it helps to do is it doesn't create a skin like a lacquer would, and then you can get cracking and chipping. So I'm actually spraying, after this part, I'm actually spraying the steel with hard wax oil, like I would spray my gates you've seen for the outside. So I'm just spraying the oil. I don't know anything about Osmo oil. I haven't heard that you can spray it. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to, but I know Heidelberg oil is designed for spray application as well as brush. Okay, the table's now finished. I'm really pleased with it. It's a fantastic finish, and the colour is just phenomenal. English oak with a Havana stain. Really nice. The problem with this black see-through resin is it just shows all the marks. People really love it, but it just shows all marks, which is crazy. Anyway, there you go.